This is K.M. Weiland, and you're listening to the 274th episode of the Helping Writers Become Authors podcast. 4 years ago, I put out the audio CD Conquering Writer's Block and Summoning Inspiration. After so many of you telling me how much you enjoyed it and how empowered you were by its information, and how much you wish there were an ebook version, I'm pleased to announce that the ebook is officially here. And not only do I have another shiny new ebook to offer you, but I'm also excited to say I've more than doubled the amount of information in the original 60-minute CD to create a fast but action-packed read of approximately 100 pages. Plus, there is, of course, a prize drawing. I am fortunate enough to be able to offer you a killer ebook bundle from some of the best writing how-to teachers in the biz, including James Scott Bell, Jody Renner, and Jill Williamson. 11 winners will each receive one of the titles. One lucky grand prize winner will get all 11. So be sure to stop by helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com this week. And now I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast entitled A Quick Guide to Beta Reader Etiquette. Writers love their beta readers. But let's be honest, beta readers also kind of drive us crazy. Some of them are perfection, as polite, professional, and talented as any in-house editor. But others, well, let's just say their lack of tact and their questionable knowledge of the craft can sometimes leave us howling in frustration. Why isn't there a manual for beta reader etiquette, for how beta readers should conduct themselves and how writers in turn should respond? A few weeks ago on Facebook, a reader asked if I'd written a post on beta reader etiquette. I hadn't. So today I'm remedying that oversight. Because trading critiques is the time-honored mode of reimbursement between writers, most of us will end up wearing both the beta reader hat and the being beta read hat more times than we can count. In the interest of keeping peace and patience amongst ourselves, and even more importantly, maximizing our helpfulness to one another, let's consider 10 bits of beta reader etiquette and 8 bits of writerly etiquette in response. So here are the 10 rules of beta reader etiquette. Rule number 1, be honest. You can't be useful to fellow writers unless you're willing to be honest with them about the good and the bad of their stories. No, you don't want to hurt any feelings, but just assume that any writer who asks your opinion will be big enough to handle even a negative response. Rule number 2, be specific. Generalities like, I loved it, or your plot was boring, aren't going to be of much help. Even if you start out with only a gut feeling about the story, do your best to figure out why you liked or disliked something. Give your writer friend something concrete on which to build his revisions. Rule number 3, couch criticism in praise. The whole point of a critique is the criticism. But be a sport and don't be too rough on a writer's delicate ego. Say what you gotta say about the book's faults, but couch your criticism in praise. Whenever you can, be lavish in your comments on a book's good points. Open your critique by telling the writer what you liked best and sum up with either a generally positive opinion or a belief that the author will be able to refine his rough draft into something good. Rule number 4, avoid negative absolutes. Insofar as honesty allows, try to avoid negative absolutes, such as, this book is awful, or I hated this character, or your theme is non-existent. Focus on the fix rather than the problem. For example, say, I recommend using a more cheerful tone. Or what if you let this character pet a dog? Or have you considered a theme for this story? Even writers who want to hear all your criticism will grow resistant to accepting it if you put them on the defensive. Rule number 5, observe deadlines. Aside from the fact that most writers will be chewing their fingernails with anticipation from the moment they send you their precious manuscript, they've also probably got some serious deadlines to meet. So once you agree to a timeline, try your darndest to meet it. Yes, you're doing the writer a favor, but he's also depending on you. If you're going to be unable to meet the deadline, always take a moment to let the writer know about the delay. Rule number 6, observe standard editing protocol. Make things easier for both yourself and the writer by observing standard editing protocol. Either use words track changes to mark your comments and corrections right into the manuscript, or use standard editing symbols for marking up a hard copy. No need to waste either the writer's time or your own with comments he won't be able to access or decipher. Rule number 7, respect the author's guidelines. If the author says she's only looking for a general overview of the story, not a line edit, then respect that. She knows what stage her story is in and what kind of opinion will be most helpful. An unasked for line edit at too early a stage may not only end up wasting your time, but it could also end up killing the writer's confidence in her story. Rule number 8, check your personal agenda at the door. Remember, as a beta reader, you're there to serve the writer, not the other way around. If you have a personal dislike for characters with red hair, the word stupendous, or rainy scenes, keep it to yourself. There's a difference between pet peeves based on technical mistakes and pet peeves that are specific only to us and our personalities. Rule number 9, identify the author's vision. In the same vein as number 8, your job is to help the author realize her vision for the story. It's definitely not your job to try to impose your vision or worldview onto the writer's story. If she wrote an adventure story, but you wanted a romance, don't take it upon yourself to rewrite the genre. Do your best to figure out what type and tone of story the author is going for, and shape your comments to help her figure out where she's falling short of her vision. Rule number 10, respect the author's autonomy. No matter how much effort and time you spend critiquing this story, there is no guarantee the author will make the changes you're suggesting. So once you've turned over your critique, let the story go. You've had your say, you fulfilled your duty. It's not your responsibility to talk the writer into using all your suggestions. So when the book comes out and the main character still has red hair, just resist the urge to throw up your hands in frustration or write the author a scolding email. And now, the 8 rules of writerly etiquette in response to beta readers. Rule number 1, show gratitude. Taking the time to read and comment on a manuscript is a humongous favor. Never take that for granted. Even if you should get your manuscript back and end up disagreeing with every single thing the beta reader said, never discount the effort that went into making those comments. Always thank beta readers profusely and let them know you're aware of the effort they put into trying to help you. Rule number 2, don't argue. Upon reading some, or all, of a beta reader's comments, your first instinct might be to argue. But don't. Just don't. If you're face-to-face with a beta reader, simply nod and smile as they explain their thoughts. Only challenge their opinions if you need clarification on a point. And even then, make sure you do it with graciousness and humility. No need to let a bossy beta run you over, but try to keep any knee-jerk negative reactions simmered down to a professional, "That's a good point, I'll take that into consideration." Rule number 3, don't take offense. Yes, you'll occasionally run into a nasty beta reader with a personal axe to grind, but generally speaking, most betas aren't out to get you even when they may sound less than kind in their critiques. Give your betas the benefit of the doubt and assume they just want to help you. Even if they're dead wrong about your story, don't take offense. This isn't personal, it's business. Rule number 4, Give the edit some time. Most of us need a little time to process a critique, especially if it's harsher than we expected. So before outright rejecting a beta reader's critique, always give yourself a week or so to process the comments. Step away from the manuscript and just let those initial emotions brew for a while. When you've cleared your head, come back to the critique and evaluate the true worth of the beta reader's offerings. Rule number 5. Remember the 2 people have to agree rule. Just as you shouldn't outright reject your beta reader's offerings, you also shouldn't swallow everything a beta says. My personal rule is that 2 people have to agree on a change before I'll make it. One of those people can be me. If I immediately recognize the worth of a beta suggestion, obviously I'll go ahead and make the change. But if I don't agree, I'll put the comment on the back burner where it will stay until another beta reader or editor makes the same comment. If that happens, then I know I have to reevaluate my initial gut feeling. Rule number 6. Respect the reader's time. The beta reader is giving you the gift of many, many hours of his time. You'd be paying a professional editor thousands of dollars to be doing what your beta is doing for free, probable discrepancies in knowledge and skill aside. But respect that gift. So respect that gift. Don't ask beta readers to adhere to impossibly tight schedules. And once you've agreed upon a reasonable deadline, don't pester the beta with requests for progress updates. Only after the deadline has come and gone without response from the beta reader should you send him a gentle email asking if he's had time to look at your book. If he hasn't, tell him that's all right and look elsewhere for another beta. Rule number 7. Don't request brainstorming assistance. A beta reader isn't necessarily a brainstorming buddy. Brainstorming requires almost as much time and effort as critiquing. So don't assume that just because someone agreed to read your manuscript, he'll also want to help you name characters and figure out how to fill plot holes. Pointing out the plot holes was his job. Filling them is yours. Rule number 8. Return the favor. It's an unspoken rule in the writing world that if you receive a critique, you should also be willing to give one. Offer up front to return the favor. And when that favor gets called in, do your best to promptly, kindly, and professionally fulfill the duties of the beta reader every bit as well as you'd like to have them fulfilled for you. The dance between writer and beta reader can sometimes be a tricky one, since not one, but 2 big fat bruisable writers' egos are in play. But figuring out the rules of the dance is always worth the effort. Treat your beta readers with kindness and respect, and always critique other writers in the same measure. When it comes to beta reader etiquette, that's really the only rule any of us needs to remember. Thank you for listening to the Wordplay Podcast. To read a transcript of this episode, you can visit my website at helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. And be sure to check back again next week.